to hear the wisdom and experience of Dan Taylor, a community advocate and warrior. Dan was in the fortunate position to be in the right place at the right time with the right skill set to help Prince Edward County's economy grow substantially. Dan also speaks on economic development across Canada, in Europe, Asia, and the United States. A good warm welcome to Dan Taylor.
It's great to be in Oshawa and in this space, and I notice there's a vibrant piece of artwork beside me of a bird, and I hope I do not carry the tradition on of spontaneous combustion, but we can crank it up to 11 if we like in the spirit of Spinal Tap and take it from there. I'll tell you, the best way, you got to take some lessons from David here, the best way to get a speaker is to approach them like this. So the offer was, first of all, I put my name, Dan Taylor, how I put Prince Edward County on the map through innovation and product development. And so a little bit of background, I grew up at the dinner table with the term creative. My dad actually had a company called Creative Marketing. So creativity and marketing are literally in my blood and part of my background, and that may be why I had an affinity to the creative economy and some of the things I'm going to talk about. Sure that you understand that what I'm talking about, it's a process. So while we're going to talk about creativity, we're going to talk about my own flavor and how I approach things. I really believe that what I'm sharing with you today is a process. It's repeatable, you can duplicate it, and I believe just about anybody can do it in any place, in any situation, and in fact, it goes beyond place. I've shifted my economic development practices a little bit since then, but I also felt that if for 50 years nobody was investing in the community from the community, that reaching deep into the community for solutions was probably not the right way to seek success. So I just thought export. For me, export, Prince Edward County is an island. Anything off that island was an export. How do we go to Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa for capital, for intellectual capital, ideas, and that type of thing? What I think of is go back to the root. When you go to a farmer's market, there's farmers and there's stalls and there's customers. Farmers only sell what people want to buy if they want to be successful. And so, I think of economic development or community development or city development. What is the marketplace looking for? And what do you have? How do you match those two together? And how do you make sure everybody within earshot can hear that we have what they said? If I'd asked people what they wanted, I would have given them a faster horse. And what I want to get at is you can do all the market research you want, and it might not give you the solutions that you really need. One of my heroes, and I think a lot of ours, is Steve Jobs, and the way he said it is, people don't know what you want until you show it to them, right? So just the smartphone market was a perfect example. We all had phones. We didn't know we needed a smartphone. Boom. It's changed the world. Because I was interested in wine, I used to go to Niagara all the time, and the thing that I learned in Niagara, which they learned from Europe centuries earlier, is this regional idea of regional cuisine. You, at a meal, you eat the food that's grown locally and you drink the wine that's local, and that's part of an experience. So what I'm really happy to share with you today and proud to say is my interest and my learning in Niagara, basically in economic development, what we call R&D is rob and duplicate. So what I did is I learned what they did in Niagara. I took my own marketing skills, put that in a bowl, and I mixed it up, and the recipe for success for me was to do what Niagara did, but do it better, harder, faster. And as we go through the talk today, the term I'm going to use is think of a bundle of assets, and bundling, packaging, but existing assets. Don't make the stuff up. Don't try and be Toronto. Don't try and be Silicon Valley. Be Oshawa. Be Oshawa. Take all the good stuff that Oshawa has, ignore some of the stuff that might not be so flattering, and build on that. If you build on that, you're authentic to place. Nobody can own that. Nobody can compete with you really, and you can own that. And only Oshawa can be like Oshawa. And so just make Oshawa better or more refined. So in our world, we call it market ready. Fancy word for packaging is market ready, which basically is, if you're in the sales business, which community builders are, what exactly are you selling? Articulate it. And Don't articulate it in your own vision without checking that your own vision fits with the marketplace. So always remember, who's buying, and what am I selling, and do those things match, and then how am I going to get that message out? Well, what could I do right away? What would be interesting? And I noticed in my first year there that there was little maple events, a little maple event here, like micro, like little. I grew up in Quebec, and I know about sugaring off. And sugaring off is you celebrate maple syrup with pancakes. In fact, I'll flip around a little bit. With pancakes and maple syrup and rides in the sugar bush. Oh, that's agriculture. What I learned from Lyle Van Cleef, our then MPP and Minister of Agriculture, is so not only is maple syrup our First Nations crop, right? So tied to First Nations and Aboriginal. It's the first crop of the season. I never thought of that. It's the first crop of the season. Nothing else grows in Canadian, Eastern Canadian winters first other than maple syrup. So kind of neat things. Ties into arts and culture and heritage and place. We know only so many places can have sugar bushes, etc. So I also grew up in Montreal, and I used to go to the jazz festival where 1 million people would be on the street. So I took my experience and said, well, why don't we take these little bits and pieces? So it existed already. We had maple. We had people doing things. And so what I learned in economic development, it kind of came naturally, I didn't study it, is let's collaborate. Why don't we take the bits and pieces and sit down around at a table and figure it out? So what I did is I sat down with Ron Hubbs, who was a road grader during the day and a sugar bushman during the weekends. And he was the head of the local maple syrup organization. So I sat down with him and I said, Ron, you're the expert, you're the ag guy, you're the maple guy. Do you think the community, the maple syrup community, would be interested in getting together and figuring out if we could do a maple syrup festival? And he said, yeah, I think so. And he'd been on the radio promoting maple syrup in other places. And then I talked to an artist and I said, Janet, do you think you could put on a little performance, musical or a play or performance, because she was a musician and a playwright? She said, yeah, I think I could do that. And so we, instead of sitting around the boardroom table, we literally sat around Ron Hubbs' kitchen table with artists, restaurateurs, maple syrup folks, and like on a shoestring, created a maple syrup festival. Ron's wife named it Maple in the County, so engagement and collaboration. I didn't see myself as the executor of that, so I hired a little old lady named Honey King, who had put on the Loyalist Adventure, which was a major success. She had great PR expertise, talking to AM 740 radio in Toronto. So I had a promoter and a project manager. I had a community, and I just sort of had a vision. I had the vision and a bit of dollars. And I used to joke with Honey King, who used to come to the meetings, my project manager, with no paper and no briefcase. And I said, Honey, just humor me. Fake it and look like you're organized just to make me feel better. We all had our own process of organization. Hers was all in her head, nothing written down, etc. Anyway, I used to do a speech called Everything I Learned in Economic Development, I learned from a truck driver and a little old lady. So the truck driver's Ron Hubbs, who did the grader, and Honey King's the little old lady. Ron taught me how to do local PR and promotion, as did Honey King, because I came from global ad agencies and major national stuff, and these guys told me how to get on the radio, get in the paper, get people out. So we put on a mini Maple in the County media event 1 month in advance. We invited the MP, my local politicians, all the business people. We had maple syrup, we had pancakes, we were in a sugar shack. The steam was rising off, and it was show business. It was water. It wasn't maple syrup because the maple syrup wasn't ready yet. And it was show business. So we put on the event. Nobody had to imagine anything. We took all the imagination out. We were on the TV station. We were on the radio, newspaper. I'm sorry, I'm almost crying because it was just awesome. And you defeat success. You can't. So, I learned from my dad a long time ago, nothing succeeds like success. So just be successful. Just make your own success. Make it up. Call all your neighbors and put them into that room if people aren't. Sort of machine gun rapid fire activity. What are we going to do to make Prince Edward County happen? It was organic. There was no strategic plan. There was no we're going to do this, this, and this. It was high level vision, gut, assets, enablement. I always wanted to do a wine and food event. I thought I was going to do it on a personal level. I did it professionally. Same thing. Went to the community. Hey, we got this great old 150-year-old agricultural building, huge 50-foot ceilings with great wood, all that kind of stuff. Let's showcase regional cuisine. We got farmers, we got restaurants, we got cideries, one winery at the time. So this wasn't, but we took all the things that we had and we put it under one roof. And it was basically where urban meets rural, and it was a food orgy. And that's not technically how we positioned it, but that's what we put on. We had jazz, because we had a jazz festival, so you tie your jazz music in. And we did the same thing. We created a mini event the month before. We got all the local media to cover it. The day that we couldn't book the venue other than Thanksgiving weekend. Ooh, felt risky, right? Thanksgiving weekend, it's holiday. Who's going to come in? Clouds and a little bit of rain morning out, but we did it right. We got the community involved. We put on an event a month before Media Day. We invited the media. They could taste the food. They could experience what it was like. And 1,250 people showed up for our first event. And now it's ongoing. Maple in the County gets 10, 12, 15,000 people a year now. It's, in fact, Taste the County, which was our destination marketing organization, went under the industry because those events were so successful, and that's a benchmark. Took those events over because they want to make sure they work and thrive. Like there's 100 acres of grapes in the ground, maybe, enthusiasts, and one guy who's trying to fight the government to open up a winery because it was illegal to open up a winery in Prince Edward County because when they established the wine industry, they had designated viticultural areas, and they never imagined another one coming on board. So they didn't factor in how to allow it. So there was all these rules and regs on how you could not be an entrepreneur in Prince Edward County in a place that might have assets that could allow you to do that. Long story short, the provincial government was great, the wine growers great, they figured it out, and lo and behold, we had a winery. So, I went there to grow grapes, so I had some inside knowledge and some understanding, and I had done some market research. And so what we did is, the story I say is, if Prince Edward County was in France, okay, you would never promote it as a wine region because it's unsuitable. So that's sort of the base. So we're in Canada, so we're a little more open, we're a little more pioneering. But technically it is too cold to grow grapes in Prince Edward County. And I'll elaborate on that in a minute, and I'm going to tie that to innovation, totally creativity, and absolutely entrepreneurship. So I didn't know what market ready was. I'm a marketer. I just know that when you sell stuff, you got to have something to sell. So we got Prince Edward County market ready for investment in vineyards first, wineries second. Vineyards first because you didn't need a building permit, you didn't need the government, nobody could get in your way. Building permits, wineries, a whole other area. My goal was to overwhelm the bureaucracy, the planning department, where they couldn't say no. And the first thing you got to do before you make wine is grow grapes anyways. So our publication was called Starting a Vineyard in Prince Edward County? ? Are you crazy? Was the sort of underlying tone. And there was almost no history of growing grapes, and we put together a how-to guide with no promises and no guarantees. The challenge in growing grapes in Prince Edward County is it's really cold. And in the summertime, that's not a problem. They got some of the best dirt on earth to grow grapes, which is really important. They got plenty of sunshine and rain and dryness to to grow. It's not an issue. But in the winter, you've got a cane. So imagine a tree branch with the little buds in it, and the buds hibernate in the winter, and they're the buds for the next year. Well, if they were exposed to the minus 22 plus degree temperatures, those buds would die. You'd get some other green, and you'd be growing vineyards for the rest of your life, but with no fruit. So that's not economically viable, and that's not the goal. So the technology or the innovation that the grape growers figured out is we'll take that cane, we'll put it on a wire, we'll drop the wire down on the ground, we'll take our plow, we'll plow it over, we'll put a big blanket of earth over it, which is insulation. Hope that the cold doesn't penetrate too cold. In the spring, we'll dig it all up, and we'll pull it back out. So that's unbelievable work. They would never do that in France. If that's not entrepreneurship, I don't know what it is. And that's innovation. No real R&D, no science and technology, no DNA, no taking broccoli and crossing it with Cabernet Franc to make a super thing. None of that stuff. Piece of wood, piece of wire, manual labor, dirt, step and repeat. $100 million industry today in Prince Edward County. 40 wineries, over 1 million vines in the ground, and making wine that is being recognized on a global scale. That's innovation. We created Taste Trail, which put all the restaurants and the wineries and the cheese boutiques all together, and it was an experience. If you were a simple roadside stand, you weren't on the Taste Trail, not because we didn't like roadside stands, because you weren't an experience. So we packaged Taste Trail. We got highway signage on the 401, wayfinding signage, so route signage all the way through the community, web, print. We made it very easy for people to understand that experience. In the year 2 or year 3, we got $2.2 million worth of earned media or public relations value. So part of the message I want to leave with you is, if you can understand your assets, if you can collaborate, and Taste Trail is collaboration again, we needed 26 people to buy into that, and you can get your message out, and you can give the media reasons to talk about you, you can get tremendous exposure. I remember a couple years ago I was speaking up north of Toronto, and they said, we want the budget that Prince Edward County has. We had $10 or $20 or $30,000, or we had $2 or $3 million, depending on the initiative. We just didn't pay for the $2 million worth of advertising. We got other people to tell our story. The other thing, so when we talk about PR, third-party credibility. When you buy an ad in the paper, it's your message. I'm selling you stuff. When a respected media person and a brand, whether it's a television station or newspaper or what have you, talk about you, they're endorsing you, and people want to buy what you have based on recommendations. It's word of mouth. It's the oldest way to sell. Favorite story. So the arts community was getting anxious, going, kind of, you're leaving us behind. You got this taste event and this Taste Trail. What about us? So the arts community got together, and we were developing this idea of an arts trail. And it was both the private sector, so lots of entrepreneurial artists. That's how they made their living. That's how they put food on the table. And then primarily the municipality, which owned 5 museums and this kind of thing. So you got artists and the bureaucrats together. We spent X months working together trying to figure out what this product was going to be. And in the end, there was a coup d'etat. There was an overthrow of the project from the artists. They felt that the city, museum, the government people were moving too slow, and they weren't in. And I'm like in the middle, and I'm just trying to make this happen, right? And I'm in the middle of a coup d'etat in Prince Edward County about marketing. So what I want to tell you is that's how valuable these efforts were recognized by the people for business, and then the entrepreneurs at the end of the day said, government, you're too slow, you're slowing us down, we can't wait for you, you're out. I had to call a meeting and bring those two people together, and the coup d'etat happened, the government was out, and the arts trail people put on an arts trail, and they had the same kind of success, and same thing, signage, marketing and promotion, yada yada. That's when you know you're successful, is when the people take it over and they almost make it happen themselves. I had this vision of seeing Prince Edward County being recognized as this regional cuisine area, or an area of gastronomy. And I thought that would take a long time. After we did our taste event, the next year, before the event, as part of our media profiling, the Toronto Star had a 3-page editorial about food and the taste event, with a big picture of a farmer and a chef and a winemaker jumping off the sandbanks in the Seine. A 3-page profile in the Toronto Star. So man, we arrived quickly. And sort of another mark of success is a few years into it, and this is really how you use the media in a good way, leverage the media. The Globe and Mail dubbed Prince Edward County the gastronomic capital of Ontario. So when the Globe and Mail says you're the gastronomic capital of Ontario, you're damn straight you are, right? And we leverage that. We got a plaque from Daryl Cramp, our MP, congratulating us on being the gastronomic capital. That's a market position. That's a market position that you can't buy. You can dub yourself, and I've seen others, when you dub yourself that, it's got way less credibility. But when the Globe and Mail, a well-respected global national newspaper, says you're something, and that's the something that you're growing up to be, man, you want to really work that. And I worked with major brands, like Doritos and Lay's potato chips and other brands. We did not spend a lot of time on our logo. In fact, we did a logo contest, and we had an okay logo. It was fine. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was respectable. We didn't really focus on branding. I don't know if this was too busy focusing on other things, intuitive, a bit of luck, or what have you. So what we did is we created the narrative. We created the pieces of the story that were defining our brand. And the media and people, because people talk, oh yeah, Prince Edward County, people defined our brand for us because we gave them the roadmap and the tools to do that. I didn't really realize that until the end of my tenure, how powerful that was. So I believe that unbranding, which really is giving people the ingredients to the recipe, but letting them bake the cake, is probably a more powerful way to build your place or your product than a slick branding strategy, etc., etc. We had slick execution, don't get me wrong. We had great sub-brands, don't get me wrong. But we didn't worry about defining and branding the place. It really ended up branding itself. I did a little bit of branding near the end, and I'll share that story because I think it's important. So, probably could have rested on our laurels, right? Could have said, great, wow, we're the gastronomic capital of Ontario. We got wineries coming. Did I mention that visitation went from 225,000 people to 600,000 people, and that spend went from 35 million to 100 million, and that where people came and spent $1 before, they were spending $2. So, I mean, this stuff worked, like tangible stats and data. What I, again, kind of knew and understood, what we were also building through all of these tourism experiences and assets and infrastructure was quality of place. We already had quality of place, but we were making it different and more interesting and diverse and appealing to a broader market. And I went to Toronto a couple of years into my role, and I went to a creative economy event, which I hadn't really heard of, and Richard Florida, who some of you may have heard of, who was the guru, and he spoke there. And a lot of what they were talking about was place like warehouses and like a space like this, taking a space like this and converting it into a knowledge economy or creative economy and that kind of thing. And I was driving back, and I thought, oh, we don't really have places like that. And then it dawned on me that we actually had an entire World War II training facility, airport, with all sorts of hangars and empty spaces. And so then I realized we had spaces like that. That wasn't really the message that I should have taken, and the message I ultimately took was, that mobile worker that I was thinking of when the internet was screeching in your ear, and then we had dumb phones, not smartphones, was that creative economy, innovative knowledge worker that we probably wanted more of in our community, because they could export to the world, they could bring their wealth and their knowledge from somewhere else, or we could nurture them from the ground up, and that they could diversify our economy beyond this agritourism, which had some limitations, seasonality, you can only grow that so much, the other market's kind of unlimited. So I'm an opportunist as well as a marketer, and so I look for words and packages. And so, if the city can have creative economy, why can't, I got really brilliant, and I inserted the word rural between creative and economy, and we became the world's first creative rural economy. We could own that. And so that was some branding that we did. And what that said to anybody who felt they were creative is, oh, you're talking to me? I'm creative. By the way, everybody is creative, but not everybody thinks of themselves as creative. And, you got a beach, and you've got reasonable house prices, and you've got decent internet connectivity, and you're close to Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, and I can ply my trade there, and I can sip wine and eat cheese and go to nice restaurants and theater and arts and all that good stuff. Count me in. So we really started taking our quality of place and our amenities that we had already and that we built up, and we said, if you're an entrepreneur, why don't you consider coming here? We had some entrepreneurs that were already doing business in our community for quite a long time, television production people, and they had this idea where they wanted to create an incubator. And so we did something a little bit different. What we did is we worked with them and we set up a not-for-profit organization that allowed them to qualify for government funding legitimately, separate the private business from this, but use their entrepreneurship know-how and some of their own capital. And they created an incubator for 3D television production, high-end training, where actually we could never get a college before. Loyalist College established a little micro campus there. They owned the real estate, so they rented the real estate to the not-for-profit, so they got some profit out of that. They managed the organization with some management fees, and they were able to get money to grow that. And then they also grew their own talent base, because they were training people on equipment that they wanted and needed for their business. So once the people graduated, there was jobs, high-tech, high-paying jobs for local people, and they used the not-for-profit and the incubator to train people that way. So that was a really interesting model that we learned. And we did it one more time where really our CFDC drove this one. And it's called the Prince Edward County Innovation Center, where a serial entrepreneur, a guy based out of Toronto, had a place in Prince Edward County, but did work out of Silicon Valley. He did 2 $50 million IPOs, so he took tech companies from X to Y, and when they reached around $50 million, flipped them. Capital actually, when his value that he could extract reached $50 million, he flipped them and extracted his value. And so he had this little hotel on the water that he didn't quite know what to do with. There wasn't quite a market for it. And our CFDC guy said, well, why don't we do this? You're interested in software. Let's set up a not-for-profit. We'll fund your renovations. I've got a relationship with Queen's University. We'll bring Queen's students. You provide mentorship and some capital. And you create a software incubator. I heard the other day that a couple of the young guys just did a $2.5 million flip on doing a bolt-on application to WagJag. So, and then are investing back in again. So there's about 30 companies in Pittman doing software development for global brands like WagJag. So all of a sudden, you go from, where do we start in economic development? Where's commerce and industry? We're a commodity ag area. We're seasonal. You can't grow grapes. Nobody really knows about us, etc., etc. So you can see that I did not put Prince Edward County on the map. I was part of the ecosystem, worked both in collaboration with people, created a bit of a nurturing environment where other people chose to work with us or on their own. And you can very much hear through the story about innovation, absolutely creativity, chutzpah for sure, entrepreneurship, and then kind of my discovery of unbranding and how you really. So what I learned actually from Richard Florida's group is there's three kind of things that help build a creative economy, and they're networks. So there's a social network, whether that's coffee shops and churches and community groups. There's the digital network, so you need connectivity for sure, and also you need roads and rail and access. And the third is you need a business network. So the one thing I learned about a creative economy and creative workers is they're not a tourism asset that you know about because they've got a location and a storefront. They're not a store in downtown where you see their name, etc. A lot of these workers are hidden, not unlike the workers here today. They're hidden, etc. So we came up with a networking event called Creative Minds, and what we did is we brought 6 to 8 entrepreneurs up to speak on camera and on video for 3 minutes, and we had 6 to 8 of them, and that was sort of a formal part of the program. And then we had a cash bar, and we supplied some food, and we did networking after, and we promoted these in the community, and we had people discover all sorts of business they didn't know existed. People networked for business and found jobs and found new business opportunities, and they just understood the makeup of our economy better. And then from my perspective, someone who needed support, that creative economy was a good thing and a successful thing and the right thing to do, was something that people should pay attention for. You know, Prince Edward County Small, we used to have 100 people come out almost to every event. We'd have a bit of live music, people would network, they would learn, we'd take all the videos, we'd put them on our website, we'd promote the headland that I showed about. They did a great 3-minute talk that told people why you should come to Prince Edward County. We had other people move there because of the videos. They weren't advertorials, they weren't sales pieces, they were people authentically speaking from what they wanted, where they were coming from, and we got other people to sell for us. And in fact, selling is the wrong word. What we did is we created an environment where people wanted to buy what we had. And if you can ever be in a position to help people buy versus try and tell them something, get all over that. I discovered that sort of through trial and error because I used to be a salesperson. I used to sell stuff. Man, I love helping people buy way more. It's easier, it's more fun, and it's way more rewarding. You have to look at what you have and maybe put on a different set of glasses and look at it through a different lens and go, okay, what do I really have here? What are the assets? What's leverageable? What's awesome? What's interesting? What's quirky? What's niche? I don't know the answer to that, but you got to look through a different lens and go, what do I have here? And what does the market want? Or do I have many things? And does the market want many of those things? And I think that's number one. And a term that I'm using is you want to redefine the definable. So you've got a definition already, and that may be what you need to sell, or maybe you need to repackage it and look at it differently. So that you want jobs, you want startups. 80% of all jobs created in North America are coming from startups that are 5 years and under. Half of those jobs are only coming from 5% of the startups, which are high growth. So we know where growth is coming from. It's startups, and they're young. And if you can figure out how to tap into and nurture and help the high growth startups, you're golden. Of unbranding, who would ever thought a marketing guy that grew up with global advertising agencies working for global brands would unbrand? I can't remember Scott's last name. There's Scott Stratton has a book called Unmarketing. So I just discovered it. I think we had a discussion. I reinvented the wheel that already existed. I didn't realize that. But unbranding, I think, is really powerful. And I think my core message for unbranding is take what you have, showcase it, let people understand it, and then let them put their spin on it. Let them be your ambassadors and your word-of-mouth salespeople, so you're not selling anything. If you think of branding, branding is intended to sell. You don't want to sell anything. You want people to buy. And I think that's what unbranding is all about. And I know that everybody can be successful in that. And in the day, it's just another great example to see that when you can build the environment, people come. Did we go court Drake Devonshire to come and knock on their door and sell them? No. I didn't direct sell one bit when I was in Prince Edward County. I sold the place through unbranding, and everybody came to us and purchased. And the last image I'll leave you with, near the end, I kind of felt like, when you see the guys on the tarmac with their flashlight trying to land planes? That's how I ended up my career in Prince Edward County, was not selling anybody, but just help people land and come to our community and decide where they want to invest. Thanks so much.